Get ready to explore a thrilling what-if scenario, Deku as a half-ghoul hero. Join us for a unique adventure where heroes and ghouls collide in unexpected ways. The planet changed into a society of superhumans, where heroes and villains emerged. But in Japan, especially in Tokyo, a society different from humans arose from the shadows. Yes, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero. Normal narration. Weeks after the sports festival event ended, all the students were back to their regular classes. Students of Class A were arriving, each taking their seats. Among them was a green-haired boy with messy hair. He sat down, reflecting on what happened in the tournament. Izuku, I went too far facing Todoroki. I need to find a way to control my strength, he thought, uncertain. As students continued to arrive, a brunette girl entered the classroom, noticing the pensive green-haired boy, but it didn't concern her much. Uraka, I wonder what Deku is thinking about. I'll ask him during break, she thought casually. After about 3 minutes, their teacher arrived. Good morning, he responded grumpily and uninspired. Good morning, Aizawa-sensei, they all said in unison. Aizawa, before we start the class, I want to inform you that exams are coming in 2 weeks. Be prepared, he said plainly. Upon hearing this, the whole class froze with fear. Izuku, 2 weeks. I have to study and train a lot, he thought normally. Aizawa, now, without further ado, let's begin the class. We'll have physical tests, he said normally. Tokyo City. We find ourselves in a special cafe, where a white-haired boy was reading a book with a blue-haired girl. Kaneki, the blue-haired girl said casually. Kaneki, what's up, Tuka? He asked somewhat confused. Tuka, are you really not sorry for turning me into a hero? She said casually, emphasizing the word hero. Kaneki, now that you mention it, I'm not so sorry. Well, after what happened a few years ago in Antioku, I know many died because of me, but I'm not sorry, he said casually. Tuka, HMPF, typical of you, she hit his arm lightly. I've told you many times, but be careful when you go out at night. Being a hero doesn't mean pigeons won't try to kill you. There are also more from Aogiri who might try to kill you, especially Ayato, she said casually. Kaneki, you've repeated it so many times that I can't forget, he chuckled. Tuka, HMPF, idiot, she chuckled too. UA Hero Academy. It was break time, and we see the green-haired boy eating with a relaxed brunette girl. Uraka, Aizawa-sensei really pushed it with today's activity, she said normally, stretching her arms. Izuku, maybe a bit, but it'll be good practice for when we're heroes, he said happily. Ida, you're right, Midoriya, he said happily. The three continued eating until young Midoriya, the greatest hero, stood in front of them. Izuku/Uraka/Ida, All Might, the three said amazed. Izuku, what's up? He said normally. All Might, I'd like to have lunch with you, he said happily. Izuku, I wonder what he wants to talk about now, he thought nervously. Uraka, you're so lucky to get along so well with the greatest hero, Deku, she responded a bit frustrated. Izuku, oh, come on, don't exaggerate. See you later, he got up from his seat. Ida, see you later, he said happily. All Might and Izuku left, and when they arrived at All Might's office, he deactivated his power. Izuku, what does All Might want to talk about? He asked curiously. All Might, first, I want to congratulate you on your performance at the festival, he said very proudly. Izuku, thank you, he said happily. All Might, and secondly, I talked to the school director to take you and the whole class to a city for a week, he said normally. Izuku, really? What city are we going to? He asked with curiosity and a bit of excitement. All Might, I'll reveal that at the end of the class, he said happily. As for One for All, you still need to keep training to master it 100%, he returned to his serious expression. Izuku, understood, he said normally. All Might, well, young Midoriya, his super strength returned, see you in class, he raised his thumb happily. Deku just nodded happily and left the room. All Might's class ended quite quickly, and the number one hero asked everyone to pay attention because what he said next surprised them all. We're going to Tokyo. The entire class shouted almost in unison, except for Todoroki and Bakugo. Todoroki, why are we going to Tokyo? He asked, somewhat curious. All Might, that's precisely what I was going to explain. Most people around the world don't go to Tokyo much because of the crimes there, he said plainly. Ida, are you saying Tokyo has the highest crime rate? He said astonished. All Might, exactly, young Tenya. This trip will be a learning experience for the future. We'll work with the officials dealing with these problems so you can prepare, he said happily. Izuku, I'll bring my notebook to take notes, he thought happily. Classes ended, and we see Izuku leaving UA suddenly. A certain brunette girl caught up with him. Uraka, hey Deku, aren't you excited about going to Tokyo? She said excitedly, getting very close to him. Deku, he said very nervously, his face completely red. Although I wonder why they say Tokyo is the highest in crimes, his expression turned serious. Uraka, you're right about that, her expression turned serious too. Ida, hey guys, what are you talking about? He asked curiously, approaching them. Izuku, we were talking about Tokyo, he said happily. Ida, I've heard rumors about it, he said normally. Uraka, what kind of rumors? She asked curiously. Ida, that most heroes who've been to Tokyo before have died, and others are left with severe and incurable injuries that force them to retire, he said normally. Deku froze in fear upon hearing that, thinking, are the villains in Tokyo really that dangerous? Uraka, hello, Earth to Deku, she kept tapping him on the head. Deku, huh? He snapped out of his thoughts, a little confused. Ida, you've been standing there for 10 minutes, he said normally. Deku, sorry, he said somewhat embarrassed. Uraka, don't worry about it. Let's go now, she said happily. Deku and Ida nodded to continue on their way home. The weekend came very quickly. All Might spoke with the students' families about the trip to Tokyo. Although All Might had trouble convincing the elevator about the trip, in the end, the elevator accepted the trip to Tokyo. At the moment, we see all the students boarding the plane. Mina, here's my seat, she said happily, sitting down. Todoroki, seat 24, he looked around until he found his seat. Izuku, here's my seat, he said happily. The green-haired boy left his luggage and sat down, noticing he had a window view. Izuku, I can't wait for takeoff, he said excitedly. Uraka, Deku, she said happily. Izuku, you Uraka, he said surprised. Uraka, who would have thought we'd be in the same row? She said happily. Deku, why yeah, I didn't expect that, he looked away, completely red-faced. Uraka sat next to him. Once everyone boarded, All Might entered. All Might, alright, everyone's here. If anyone needs me, I'll be in the private area, he said happily, heading to the back of the plane. 20 minutes later, the plane took off for Tokyo. Uraka, wow, look Deku, it looks amazing, she said happily, looking out the window. Izuku, yeah, it looks great, he said happily. Hours passed until it got dark. Deku continued to look out the window until he felt his shoulder heavy. He turned to see Uraka had fallen asleep on his shoulder. Deku, this is very uncomfortable, he thought a little alarmed, although she looks very beautiful while sleeping, he thought happily. The next morning, the plane started to land. The first to wake up were Deku and Uraka. They both gave a big yawn and greeted each other. Izuku, good morning, Uraka, he said happily. Uraka, good morning, Deku, she said happily. Both realized the position they were in. They were hugging each other. Both looked into each other's eyes, both completely red-faced, and then they separated. Izuku, I was hugging Uraka, but how and when did that happen? He thought, alarmed. Uraka, Deku was hugging me, was the only thing echoing in her head. All Might emerged from his private area and woke everyone up. All Might, wake up, young ones, we've arrived in Tokyo, he said happily. The class began to wake up. Once everyone was awake, they grabbed their luggage and got off the plane. Once everyone was off, All Might led them to the place they would stay, which would also be where they would assist the officials with Tokyo's villains. After about 24 minutes, All Might and Class A arrived at their destination. All Might, so, this is District 20, he said plainly, looking at the huge white building. Izuku, so, this is Tokyo's defense headquarters, he thought normally. The gate of the district opened, revealing the leader of the place. All Might, it's good to see you've arrived, he responded positively. All Might, thank you for having us. What's your name? He said normally. Let's save the introductions for later, All Might. Now, come in, he said, leading the way into the district. Izuku, what a character, he said in a small whisper. Upon entering the district, almost the entire class was surprised to see all the people there, but then the squad leader stopped them. Question mark. First of all, I want to thank you for being here. We don't usually have people with quirks coming to help, he said, turning to the youngsters and the greatest hero with a smile. Katsuki, he's saying there are only people without quirks in this place. How pathetic, he crossed his arms. Question mark. First rule of this place, kid, never underestimate anyone, said a black-haired boy with red eyes, holding a paper airplane in his hand. Katsuki, and who the hell are you? He said angrily, looking at the boy. Question mark. Investigator Suzuya. Good to see you, he said normally, arms crossed. Juuzu, so, what do you need from me, boss? He said happily. Question mark. This is Investigator Juuzu Suzuya. He'll take you to your rooms. As for you, All Might, I need to speak with you alone, he said normally. All Might, understood, he said normally. Question mark. You have 10 minutes to settle in. Once you're done, we'll meet so you can learn about ghouls, he said normally. Izuku, ghouls? He thought, confused. Juuzu, all right, kids, follow me, he said happily. Katsuki, who are you calling kids? He started generating explosions in his hands. In the blink of an eye, Juuzu knocked down Bakugo and threw one of his knives, landing it near the boy's face. Katsuki, when did, he said, surprised, looking at the knife. Juuzu, remember, kid, never underestimate people. Now, without further ado, let's go to your rooms, he said happily. Juuzu led everyone to their rooms, which they had to share between two. Izuku entered his room, put down his things, and sat on his bed. Ida, Midoriya, he said happily, entering the room. Izuku, Ida, he said happily. Ida, so, we'll be sharing a room, he said, putting his things down next to his bed. Izuku, it seems so, he said happily. Ida, we better get going, he headed to the room's entrance. Izuku, hey, wait for me, he grabbed his notebook and pen and left the room. Meanwhile, we see All Might chatting with the district's leader. All Might, you're saying ghouls are such dangerous creatures, he said a bit scared. Question mark, exactly, so under no circumstances should you let the kids out at night. That's when they're most active, he said normally. All Might, thank you for the information, Investigator Kizu, he said happily. Question mark, it was nothing. Now, I'll go to your students, and don't leave until your strength returns, he said normally, getting up from his desk. An hour after that conversation, all the students paid attention to the talk given by Investigator Kizu. Night fell quickly, and as all the students were heading to their rooms, All Might stood in front of them. All Might, young ones, I need to tell you something before you go to your rooms. I have to give you a warning, he said a bit alarmed. Uraka, and what is it, All Might? She asked curiously. All Might, under no circumstances should you go out at night. Ghouls appear more frequently and are more dangerous, he said plainly. Katsuki, he stopped us for that? What a waste of time, he said, passing by All Might, ignoring his warning. Tokoyami, guys, where's Midoriya? He said confused when he didn't see the green-haired boy. Now we see Deku walking toward District 20 since he went for a walk after the talk. Izuku, I have to get there quickly or everyone will ask, he said alarmed, walking as fast as he could. He continued walking until he heard a loud thud coming from an alley, which piqued his curiosity. Upon entering the alley, he heard another loud thud. He saw a boy being slammed against the wall of the building, piercing through it. Two red-eyed creatures approached the boy on the wall, creatures that Deku recognized immediately. Izuku, those are ghouls, he said a little scared. One of the ghouls grabbed the boy, who had white hair, by the neck and generated something on his arm. Izuku, I have to help him, he said worried, stepping out of the wall. Deku stood in front of the two ghouls and charged strength in his fingers. Ghoul, hey, who's that? Said the ghoul, confused, looking at the boy. Izuku, smash. He released his fingers, unleashing a strong wind pressure. The pressure hit both ghouls, leaving them half unconscious. But as he launched the attack, Deku fractured his finger, but he didn't pay it much mind. He quickly took advantage of the time and went to help the boy. Izuku, are you okay? He said concerned. Question mark, grrr, thanks, the boy stood up. The boy stood up, revealing that he wore a mask that covered almost his entire face except for his left eye. Question mark, alright kid, get out of here. I'll take care of this, he said normally, while tentacles came out of his back. Deku looked at his fractured finger but ignored it. Izuku, no way, I'll help you deal with these guys, he said annoyed. HMPF, suit yourself, he said normally. About 18 minutes passed until the battle ended. Deku ended up completely fracturing his arm but managed to defeat the ghouls. Thanks for helping me, kid. What's your name? He asked curiously. Izuku, I'm Izuku Midoriya. And what's your name? He extended his unfractured arm for a handshake. I'm Kaneki Ken, he shook the boy's hand. Suddenly, a sharp object pierced Kaneki's head, causing him to fall. Izuku, Kaneki. He got on his knees and held him by the shoulders. Kaneki was dying, but before he passed, he removed his mask and handed it to the green-haired boy. Kaneki, keep it. Protect them, he finally fell asleep. Izuku, Kaneki, don't die. What does her mean? He said frustrated. An object pierced Deku's stomach. He saw the object, which was green. Deku coughed up blood. Ghoul, troublesome kid, he removed his weapon from Deku's stomach. Ghoul 2, perfect, Pachia has been killed, he said crazily. Ghoul, the leader will be proud, he said happily. The ghouls left the scene, leaving Deku agonizing and slowly dying. District 20. All Might, calling Deku young Midoriya, come back to the district quickly. It's very dangerous to be out at night, ghouls appear more frequently. If you're reading this, please respond. He hung up the call, very worried. 3 hours later. We see Deku lying in a hospital bed, connected to a machine measuring his heartbeat, with an 4 tube connected to his right arm and an oxygen machine. The green-haired boy began to open his eyes, but as he did, one of them turned black. Izuku woke up briefly, but due to his severe injuries and exhaustion, he fell unconscious again. District 20, Uraka and Mina's room. Both girls were playfully hitting each other with pillows until they ended their little fight and sat on their beds. Mina, so, what would you like to do, Uraka? She asked happily. Uraka, how about we play truth or dare? She suggested cheerfully. Mina, okay, Uraka, truth or dare? She asked excitedly. Uraka, truth, she replied happily. Mina, who do you have a crush on in the class? She asked, looking into her eyes with interest. At that moment, Uraka's face turned red, and the image of a certain green-haired boy came to her mind. Uraka, sigh, I won't deny it, I do like someone in the class, she said happily with a smile. Mina, ooh, and who's the lucky one? She asked eagerly, waving her hands. Uraka, it's Deku, she continued smiling. Mina, Midoriya, she exclaimed, surprised. Well, he's a great friend, very kind and caring, she said happily. The two continued chatting when suddenly Uraka's phone started ringing. Uraka, I wonder who it is, she said, a bit confused, taking out her phone. Mina, it's probably Midoriya, she said teasingly. Uraka blushed furiously and answered the call. Uraka, hello, she spoke nervously. Caller, hello, are you Uraka Ochako? He asked normally. Uraka, who's asking? She responded, a bit serious. Caller, I'm asking if you know a person named Izuku Midoriya. The last thing he said astonished the brunette. If you are Uraka Ochako, I want to inform you that Izuku Midoriya is hospitalized. The last thing he said scared the brunette. Uraka, what? She asked, frightened. Doctor, he was attacked by a ghoul, lost most of his organs, but we managed to save him, he said normally. Uraka froze in fear. A photo was sent to her, and upon seeing the image, her expression changed to sadness, which worried Mina. Mina, Uraka, what's wrong? What's happening? She asked, concerned, looking into her eyes. A couple of tears fell from Uraka's eyes, and she fell to her knees, still crying. Mina, what happened? She asked even more worried. Uraka just handed her phone to Mina, who quickly took it. Upon seeing the photo sent to Uraka of Deku in the hospital, she gasped in shock. 5 hours later. All Might, how is he? He asked, worried. Doctor, he lost a lot of blood and half of his organs except for his heart and stomach, but we managed to operate on him before he lost more blood and died, he said normally. All Might, when will he wake up? He asked again, worried. Doctor, we're not sure yet, but he's definitely lucky to be alive. If you want, you can go see him, he said normally. Uraka looked at the boy she loved so much connected to the machines, and her eyes started to well up. All Might, let's go see him before we leave, he said normally. All the students entered except for Kachan, and as they entered, All Might just hung his head at seeing his successor in such a state. All Might, I'm so sorry, young Midoriya. I never wanted this to happen to you. I would have preferred 1,000 times over that I was the victim instead of you, he thought, frustrated, clenching his fists. Around 10 minutes passed until the doctor arrived, indicating that visiting hours were over. Doctor, time's up, he said calmly. All Might, I understand. Let's go, young ones, he said calmly. Everyone left the room except for one, Uraka, who stayed, looking at Deku's face while holding his hand. Uraka, I don't want to leave, she whispered so no one could hear her. All Might, young Ochako, visiting hours are over. We need to return to District 20, he said calmly. Uraka looked at All Might with tears in her eyes, then turned to Deku to bid him farewell. Uraka, goodbye, Deku. I'll come to visit you tomorrow, she whispered, still filled with sadness. Uraka left the room, and All Might sighed heavily before leaving. 2 minutes after everyone had gone, Deku moved his right arm slightly, but then stopped. 4th day of the week. Uraka entered the hospital with a bouquet of flowers. She approached the receptionist to ask for permission to see the boy she loved. Uraka, good afternoon, she said happily. Receptionist, good afternoon, young lady. Who are you here to see? She asked cheerfully. Uraka, I've come to see Izuku Midoriya, she said happily. Receptionist, all right, you may go in, she said cheerfully. Uraka made her way to room 15, where Deku was. When she arrived and entered, she was astonished by what she saw. Deku was already awake, sitting and looking out the window. Uraka, Deku, she managed to say, still amazed. Upon hearing Uraka's voice, Deku turned to look at the brunette. Deku, Uraka, he said calmly. Uraka dropped the bouquet of flowers she was holding, tears starting to well up in her eyes. Without thinking, she ran towards the green-haired boy and hugged him, surprising him. Uraka, you woke up. You finally woke up, she began to cry tears of happiness, not letting go of Deku. Deku blushed deeply but then relaxed and returned his friend's embrace. Izuku, how long was I asleep? He asked curiously. Uraka, almost a week. We're going back home tomorrow, she said, separating from the hug to look him in the eyes. Deku's eyes widened upon hearing what Uraka said, almost a week in a coma. Izuku, if I hadn't gone for a walk that afternoon. He trailed off, looking away and clenching his fists. Uraka, it's not your fault. You didn't know ghouls appear more at night, she said, taking his hands and trying to reassure him. Deku glanced at Uraka and smiled. Uraka, and don't worry. While you were here in the hospital, I wrote down everything we learned about ghoul types in your hero notebook, she said happily. Izuku, really, thank you, Uraka, he said happily. Uraka, don't thank me, she said happily, with a slight blush. The two continued chatting when suddenly the doctor entered the room. Doctor, young Midoriya, I have good news, he said happily. Izuku, what is it, doctor? He asked curiously. Doctor, you can leave the hospital now. Your wounds have fully healed, he said, handing him the results of his operation. Izuku, are you serious? He asked happily. Uraka, great, now just get dressed, and let's go, she said happily, taking his hand. I'll wait for you outside, she said, leaving the room. After Uraka left the room, 2 minutes passed before Deku emerged, changed from the room. Izuku, let's go, he said happily. Uraka nodded, and they proceeded to leave the hospital. As they exited, they began to chat until they passed by a burger stand. Izuku, I'm going to buy a burger. Do you want one? He asked happily. Uraka, sure, why not, she said happily. Deku approached the stand and ordered 2 burgers. 5 minutes later, they were handed their burgers. Deku paid for them, and they proceeded to head to District 20. Uraka, these burgers are delicious, she said happily. Deku took the first bite of his burger, but as he tasted it, he felt something bitter. After swallowing the burger, he started feeling nauseous. Uraka, Deku, are you okay? She asked worriedly. Deku covered his mouth with his hands, desperate, started looking around and saw some bathrooms, and quickly ran towards them. Upon arrival, he entered one of the stalls and vomited the burger. Izuku, why? Why did the burger taste different? It tasted delicious, but why did it feel kind of bitter, and why did I feel like vomiting? He thought, alarmed. The green-haired boy decided to ignore it, flushed the toilet, then exited and washed his hands. After washing his hands, he splashed water on his face, took some napkins, and dried his face. He turned to look in the mirror, but as he did, his expression changed to one of panic as he saw that his left eye had turned black with red pupils. Deku jumped back in fear, then looked in the mirror and saw someone pass behind him. "Izuku, who's there?" he said, scared. He closed his eyes, shook his head, then turned to look in the mirror and saw his eye had returned to normal. "Izuku, I must be imagining things." That encounter with the ghouls was terrifying. He thought, alarmed. Deku left the bathroom, where the brunette stood in front of him, very worried. "Uraka, Deku, are you sure you're okay?" she asked, concerned. Deku, yeah, I'm fine. I just didn't feel well after the burger," he said nervously, moving his arms. "Uraka, okay, if you say so. Let's go back, everyone's waiting for us," she said happily. The green-haired boy nodded, and they continued towards District 20. 30 minutes later, they arrived. "Uraka, wait here," she said, content. "Izuku, okay," he said, confused, raising an eyebrow. She entered the district, and luckily, everyone was there. "Uraka, hey guys, I'm back," she said happily. "Ida, hi, Ochako. How's Midoriya?" he asked, worried. "Uraka, you can come in now," she said happily. Deku entered the district, surprising everyone. "Izuku, hey, everyone," he said, happy. "Ida, Midoriya," he quickly gave him a tight hug. "I'm so glad you've recovered," he said very happily. "Todoroki, HMPF, good to see you didn't die," he said casually, arms crossed. "Kirishima, what's it like facing ghouls?" he asked curiously. "All Might, young Midoriya." He approached him. "It's great to see you've recovered," he said, taking him by the shoulders, very happy. Time flew by, and soon all the students and All Might were leaving District 20. "It was nice having you here," said the investigator with a smile. "All Might, I hope to see you again soon," he said happily. All Might and the students proceeded to leave. Half an hour later, they all arrived at the airport, entered, and took their seats. "Izuku, I can't wait to go home," he said happily. "Uraka, what are you thinking about?" she asked happily, sitting beside him. "Izuku, I just want to go home," he said happily. "Uraka, it's been a tough week," she said happily. "Izuku, tell me about it. I almost died because of ghouls," he said a bit scared, remembering that day. "But anyway, what were you guys doing while I was in the hospital?" he asked happily. "Uraka, we did lots of things. We had battles against higher-ranking investigators, and they taught us about their quinquess," she said happily. "Izuku, quinquess?" he said confused. Uraka, oh, right. She took out the notebook from her bag. "I wrote down everything about ghouls, divided into sections for heroes, villains, and ghouls," she said happily, handing him the notebook. "Izuku, thanks, Uraka. You're a great friend," he said happily, taking the notebook. Uraka, yeah, a friend. She looked away, a little disheartened. "Izuku, is something wrong?" he asked, concerned. Uraka, no, nothing's wrong," she replied, somewhat nervous. The plane took off, and as they headed home, Deku read the information about ghouls that Uraka had written in her notebook. "Izuku, they feed on human flesh and themselves. Normal food like burgers, tacos, etc., disgust them, making them vomit," he said to himself. Deku remembered what happened when he ate the burger. It tasted strange, and he ended up vomiting. "Izuku, no, don't panic, Izuku. The burger just didn't agree with you. Let's keep reading," he thought calmly to continue reading. "They can only drink coffee, they have something called kagyun, which appears on their backs, arms, etc. They have superhuman abilities and reflexes. Most ghouls have rapid regeneration and can only be harmed by themselves or extremely strong blows," he thought normally. Once he finished reading the ghoul information, he decided to rest. The next day, the plane was landing, and once it did, all the students grabbed their bags and left the plane. They all started heading towards UA, but as they walked, Deku felt strange. He began to smell food, but what was even stranger to him was that the smell was coming from the people passing by. "Izuku, what the heck is happening to me?" he thought, alarmed. As he continued walking, Uraka looked at him somewhat worried, but she concluded that he was still scared from the accident he had. 25 minutes passed until they arrived at UA Ida. "We finally made it," he said happily. Deku just looked at the school and let out a heavy sigh. Izuku, it feels good to be home, he said happily, then proceeded to enter. Upon entering UA, Deku quickly ran to his room and locked himself in, which most people noticed. Todoroki, what's wrong with Midoriya now? He asked, somewhat confused. Ida, I have no idea. He started acting strange as soon as we got off the plane. He said normally. Todoroki, for now, we have to leave him alone. After all, he had a horrible accident. He said normally. Ida, you're right. He said normally, then stepped away from Deku's door. Uraka managed to hear the conversation before the boys left. She stood in front of Deku's door, about to knock, but upon hearing Ida and Todoroki's conversation, she refrained. Uraka, he needs to be alone. I'll talk to him later. She thought happily, then went back to her room. Meanwhile, Deku sat on his bed, looking at the floor. He opened his suitcase and took out something special. A mask. Deku, why would he give me his mask before he died? Deku, why would he give me his mask before he died? He thought, confused. He set the mask aside and remembered that Uraka's notes about ghouls mentioned that they were disgusted by food that wasn't human flesh, which made them vomit. He remembered feeling disgusted and vomiting after eating his burger. Then he remembered that ghouls could only be harmed by themselves or by strong blows, which meant a knife would break upon touching them. To check if he wasn't hallucinating, he stealthily left his room and headed to the dining hall without anyone noticing. Upon reaching the dining hall, he took one of the sharpest knives and returned to his room. Once again, after locking the door, he aimed the sharp point of the knife at his neck. He started sweating from fear because if he was wrong, he would die, but curiosity won over. Izuku, size 1, 2, 3. He closed his eyes and stabbed his neck. 1 second later, Deku opened his eyes, moved the knife away from his neck. And the knife was broken. Izuku, no, no, no. It can't be true, he said very scared, backing up until he fell onto his bed. If it's true, boy. A voice sounded beside him. The green-haired boy turned to see who was supposed to be dead. Izuku, Kaneki, but how is this possible? You're supposed to be dead, he said, scared. Kaneki, we're in your head, kid, he said normally. Deku looked around, and everything was white. Kaneki, I know exactly what you're going through. I went through this when I became a ghoul, he said normally. Izuku, but I don't want to be a ghoul, I don't want to. Tears started streaming from his eyes. Kaneki, I'm afraid you don't have a choice. He put a hand on his shoulder. Go back to Tokyo, return before you lose control. See you later. He began to fade. Deku came out of his head and saw the broken knife on the floor. Izuku, if I stay, everyone is at risk. All Might, my mom, my friends, and the image of a particular girl came to his mind. Uraka, I don't want to hurt her. Uraka, I love her. He thought, scared. Deku took Kaneki's mask and put it in his suitcase. Deku, I'll leave when it gets dark. He thought normally. He approached the window of his room, seeing his reflection, but then his eye turned black with a red pupil. Deku closed his eyes and shook his head desperately. When he opened his eyes again, his eye had returned to normal. Night fell quickly. Deku peeked out to make sure no one was around and then left. But before leaving, he stood in front of someone's room with a letter in his hand. Undertake Multimedia Song. Uraka was lying in bed watching a movie while sipping hot chocolate when there was a knock on her door. She got off her bed and went to the door, opening it, but there was no one there. Uraka, hello? She said, confused. Uraka looked around, then down, finding a letter. Uraka, I wonder who left this letter. She said, confused, taking the letter. She opened the envelope and began to read the letter. Uraka, if you're reading this, I want to tell you not to try to find me. I'm leaving the academy. If I stay, you all will be in danger, and I don't want to hurt you, especially you, because you mean a lot to me. Thank you for the great moments we shared. Don't forget me and remember me as the Deku you knew. Goodbye. From, Izuku Midoriya. 2 minutes after reading the letter, tears started streaming from her eyes, and she let go of the letter. Uraka, no. Deku, please don't go. I need you, I need to tell you how much I love you. She started crying with sadness. Meanwhile, we see Deku outside UA, looking at the place with a hint of sadness. Izuku, I'm sorry, Uraka. I'm a danger to you and others. Good luck with your future endeavors, and don't forget me. Goodbye. He continued walking backward, losing sight of Yue. After the green-haired guy left, Uraka ran through the halls of Yue's dorms towards Deku's room. When she arrived, she saw the door was slightly open. Upon opening it fully, she noticed the room was empty, and the window was open. Uraka, he really left. Sniff, Deku's gone. She dropped to her knees, still crying. Now we see the green-haired guy looking out the window of a particular house. Izuku, I'm so sorry, Mom, but I have to do this to keep you safe. He thought sadly before sneaking into his room through the window. He tried to make as little noise as possible, slowly opening his room door to head to his mom's place. Upon arrival, he stealthily entered, found his mom's bag, took her wallet, and grabbed as much money as he could. Izuku, forgive me, Mom, I'm doing this for your sake. He whispered sadly, looking at his mom one last time. Deku left the room, closing his mom's door behind him, then headed to his room. He left a farewell letter on his room's door, went inside, closed the door, and then exited through the window. Izuku, I'll miss my home. He thought sadly. The green-haired guy grabbed his suitcase and headed to the airport. Upon arrival, he went to the reception and bought a ticket for a flight to Tokyo, where everything about his changes began. 15 minutes later, the announcement came over the speakers, passengers traveling to Tokyo, please board flight 306. Upon hearing this, he quickly headed toward the plane. Before boarding, he took out his phone, deleted all contacts, his mom's, All Might's, his 6 friends, and Uraka's. After deleting all contacts, he put his phone on airplane mode and boarded. Once inside, he found his seat, sat down, and half an hour later, the plane took off. Deku glanced out the window one last time at the city where he was born, where he had good and bad times, where he made great friends, but most importantly, the city where he met Uraka, closing his eyes as tears began to fall. The next morning, we see the plane landing in Tokyo. Deku woke up, looked out the window, realizing he had arrived in Tokyo. 2 minutes after landing, passengers started to disembark, with Deku carrying his suitcase off the plane. Izuku, well, I'd better find a place to stay. He said calmly, starting his new life. Deku left the airport, heading into the city. As he walked, he caught a whiff of something that made his stomach churn. Luckily, he found himself in front of a cafe. Izuku, huh? He said, confused. At that moment, the words of the white-haired guy before he died came to his mind, protect them. Deku let out a heavy sigh and entered the cafe. Inside, he felt very relaxed, as if he had been there before. Deku pushed thoughts aside, sat at a table, and placed his suitcase beside him. Izuku, who can I ask about Kaneki? He wondered, feeling unsure. While he was thinking, a girl with blue hair approached him. Good morning. She replied in a friendly manner. Izuku, good morning. He said normally. What can I get you? She asked again, friendly. The green-haired guy quickly grabbed the menu, but upon seeing the food, he decided to just order a drink. Izuku, can I have a coffee, please? He said normally. Of course, I'll bring it right over. She said normally. Before the girl left, Deku spoke up again. Izuku, hey, wait. He said normally. What's up? She said somewhat confused. Izuku, well, I'd like to ask you something. He said somewhat nervously. And what's your question? She said normally. At that, Deku took a mask out of his suitcase and placed it on the table, surprising the blue-haired girl. Izuku, do you happen to know the person who used to wear this mask? He asked normally. The mask of Kaneki. She thought, alarmed. The atmosphere was quiet for a while. The blue-haired girl went to the cafe door and put up the closed sign before approaching the green-haired guy. Where did you get this mask? She asked with great interest. Izuku, it's a long story. Some friends and I came on a trip to Tokyo for a week, but I went for a walk for a bit. When I realized it had gotten dark, I tried to hurry back to where I was staying. But then I heard a loud noise coming from an alley. I went into the alley and saw the person wearing this mask being attacked by ghouls. He said normally. He's been attacked again. She thought alarmed. Izuku, I helped him defeat those ghouls. We introduced ourselves, he told me his name, Kaneki Ken, but then, he was attacked, murdered. The last thing he said left the blue-haired girl in shock. Before he died, he gave me his mask and told me to come here to protect them. But I suffered an accident caused by the same ghouls who killed Kaneki, and now," he paused briefly, closing his eyes. And now what?" she asked normally. "Izuku, now, I'm one of them." He opened his eyes, looking at the blue-haired girl, revealing his ghoul eye. One eye, no wonder I felt Kaneki's presence in this kid. She thought, surprised and amazed. "What's your name, kid?" she asked normally. "Izuku, my name is Izuku Midoriya, but they call me Deku," he said normally. "I'm Tuka, and to answer your first question, yes, I know Kaneki, in fact, he used to work here," she said normally. "Izuku, really?" he said astonished. "Tuka, it's true, and don't worry, you're not the only ghoul here," she said normally. Deku was confused to hear what Tuka said. Then Tuka's eye changed, revealing that she was also a ghoul. "Izuku, you're one too," he said amazed and a little scared. "Tuka, everyone who works and lives here is a ghoul," she said normally, returning her ghoul eye to normal. "If Kaneki told you to live here, there's a reason. Now, I'll bring you the coffee you ordered," she said normally. Once Tuka left, the green-haired guy's phone started ringing. Seeing the caller's number, he knew who it was within 2 seconds, so he hung up. "Tuka, here's your coffee," she said normally. "Izuku, oh, thanks," he said normally, taking the coffee cup. "Tuka, stop staring at the cup with fear, just drink it," she said somewhat annoyed. "Izuku, okay, he said somewhat scared. After taking the first sip of coffee, he didn't feel like vomiting. Instead, it tasted good. "Izuku, it tasted good, unlike the burger I had last week, this tastes good," he said normally. Tuka, humph, seeing this kid reminds me of when Kaneki first arrived, she thought frustrated, putting her hand on her face in lamentation. "Well, kid, if Kaneki told you to come here, you'll have to work here," she said again, surprising the boy. "Izuku, what?" he said alarmed, almost choking on his coffee. "Tuka, what did you expect, to stay here as if nothing happened? We all help each other here," she said annoyed. "Izuku, okay, he said somewhat scared. Tuka, sigh well, come on, I'll introduce you to the rest," she said normally. Deku got up and followed Tuka upstairs, where she introduced him to the others. "Tuka, well, Deku, this is Hinami," she said normally, introducing the brown-haired girl with brown eyes. "Hinami, hello, nice to meet you," she said in a friendly manner. "Izuku, nice to meet you too," he said happily. "Tuka, and finally, this is Yomo," she said normally, pointing to a white-haired man. "Yomo, welcome to kid," he said normally. "Izuku, just you three?" he said normally. "Hinami, no, there are more, they just don't have to work today," she said normally. "Izuku, I see," he said normally. "Tuka, anyway, Yomo and Hinami, I need you to teach Deku the cafe's rules, he's going to work with us," she said normally. Yomo, understood, let's go, kid, he said normally. Izuku, oh okay, he said somewhat nervously, as he was about to start living with ghouls. Once Deku went downstairs with Hinami and Yomo, Tuka let out another sigh before taking out her phone and calling someone special. "Tuka, come on. Answer already," she said somewhat desperate. Hello. The call was answered. "Tuka, hi, Hyde, I need to ask you a favor," she said normally. The day passed quickly until night fell, and we see Deku chatting with Hinami. "Hinami, so, you understood?" she said happily. "Izuku, yeah, and to be honest, it's the first time I've had a job," he said happily. "Hinami, it's fun once you get used to it." She gave him a smile. As they continued chatting, a blonde-haired guy with part of his hair colored black and a copper mask entered the cafe. Hey, good evening, everyone," he said happily. "Hinami, Hyde, good to see you again," she said happily. "Izuku, if he's here to eat something, we're sorry, but we're already closing," he said normally. "Tuka, he didn't come as a customer, Deku, I called him," she said normally. "Hyde, so, you're Izuku," he said happily. "Izuku, Okay, I got a little lost there. He said, a bit taken aback. Tuka, I called Hyde so you can live with him, but I asked him first if he wouldn't mind. She said normally. Hyde, and I don't mind at all, in fact, I like the idea of having company in my house. He said happily, approaching the green-haired guy. I hope we get along well, Izuku. He extended his right arm happily. Izuku, humph, same here. He shook Hyde's hand happily. Tuka, all right, it's time to go, and Deku, see you tomorrow at 6 a.m., she said normally. Izuku, okay, bye. He said happily, then left the cafe. Why does she want me here so early? The cafe opens at 9 a.m., he thought, confused. Hyde, well, Deku, let's go home. He said happily. Deku just nodded and followed the blonde guy, but as they were heading home, they passed by an alley where they could see a blonde-haired girl looking at the green-haired guy with great interest. That boy looks so cute. So cute that I feel like torturing him and making him bleed a lot. She said psychotically, showing her face covered by a mask while one of her eyes was black with a red pupil. Deku and Hyde got home. When Deku entered, he looked around. Hyde, it's small and a bit messy, but it's home, he said casually. Izuku, it's nice, he said happily. Hyde, thanks, now come, your room's this way, he said cheerfully. Deku followed Hyde to his room. When they arrived, Hyde opened the door, revealing only a bed and some furniture. Hyde, I'll leave you to settle in, he said happily, stepping out of the room. Izuku, thanks, he said happily. The green-haired boy opened his suitcase and began organizing his clothes and other things in the room. Once he finished, he lay down on the bed to rest. Izuku, tomorrow begins my new life, he said calmly. Hyde, hey, Deku, come chat for a bit, he said casually from the kitchen. Izuku, sure, coming, Hyde, he said happily, then got up from the bed and headed to the kitchen. The next morning, we see the green-haired boy heading to the cafe with a backpack containing a special set of clothes. 6 minutes before starting work. Deku had put on a white long-sleeved shirt with white gloves, a black vest, and black pants. Izuku, time to go to work, he said happily, then left his room. Just as he was about to leave the room, he received a message from his cafe boss. Message. Tuka. Deku, if you have a training suit, bring it. Izuku, why on earth did she ask me to bring a training suit? He said, still confused, as he continued on his way to work. Arriving at the cafe, he saw Tuka sitting at one of the tables. He knocked on the door, Tuka heard him and got up from her chair to open the door for the green-haired boy. Tuka, good morning, she said cheerfully. Izuku, good morning, he said happily. Deku entered the cafe and sat at one of the tables. Tuka, did you bring your training suit like I asked? She said casually. Izuku, yes, it's in my backpack, he said casually. Then a little girl of about 5 years old descended the stairs toward the blue-haired woman. The girl had black and white hair, fair skin, and blue eyes. Mommy, she hugged the blue-haired woman happily. Tuka, Ichika, she picked up her daughter happily. Deku, she's my daughter, she said happily. Izuku, your daughter, he said amazed, to which Tuka nodded. And who is the father? He asked curiously. Tuka just looked away, and Deku understood who the father was. Izuku, Kaneki, you're an idiot, he thought angrily. I didn't know, sorry, he said somewhat repentantly. Tuka, humph, don't worry, Kaneki knew how dangerous it was to go out at night, but he didn't stop, she said casually. Izuku, well, why did you ask me to bring my training suit? He asked curiously. Because we're going to train you, a blue-haired boy entered the cafe. A blue-haired boy entered the cafe. Izuku, and who are you? He said confusedly. Tuka, he's my brother, his name is Ayato, she said casually. 2 minutes after Deku and Hyde left. Tuka took out her phone and called someone special. What do you want now? She said casually. Tuka, Ayato. Kaneki died, she said casually. Ayato, I'm sorry, he said casually. Tuka, but that's not all, a boy was there when Kaneki was killed, she said casually. Ayato, and? He said without much interest. Tuka, I felt the same presence in him as Kaneki's, I suppose they put Kaneki's organs in him and he became a one-eyed ghoul, she said casually. Ayato, that's new, he became a little interested. Tuka, and from what I see, he doesn't know how to activate his Kagyun. I need you to help me train him so he can activate his Kagyun, she said casually. Ayato, Okay, but I'll do it only because I owe you a favor, he said casually. Tuka, typical of you, see you tomorrow at 6 a.m., she said casually. Ayato, goodbye, he hung up. Izuku, I see, he said casually. Ayato, alright, enough talking, let's go, kid, follow me, he said casually. Izuku, oh okay, he said somewhat scared, picking up his backpack. Both headed for the stairs but went downstairs, and after descending enough, they reached a door. Ayato opened the door, revealing a room big enough for training. Ayato, put on your suit, he said casually. Deku nodded, quickly opened his backpack, and took out his suit. 3 minutes later, Deku finished putting on his suit. Izuku, alright, I'm ready, he said seriously, adjusting the right glove of his suit. Ayato, good, then let's begin, his eyes turned black with red pupils. From Ayato's back emerged his Kagyun. Deku trembled a bit in fear at the sight, as Ayato began to run towards him, throwing punches and kicks. Deku blocked and dodged them. Ayato, humph, not bad, kid, he said surprised, not stopping his attacks. Deku threw a kick, but Ayato jumped, evading it. His Kagyun hardened, and he started shooting spikes. Deku managed to dodge them due to his super reflexes. Ayato launched more spikes, and Deku extended his arm. Izuku, smash. He released a strong air pressure from his fingers. The air pressure destroyed Ayato's spikes, but he managed to dodge it in time. Deku looked at his fractured finger, astonished to see it heal. Izuku, my finger healed, but how? He said amazed. Ayato stood in front of him, grabbed his shoulders, and delivered a knee strike. Izuku, he held his stomach and fell to his knees. Ayato, don't get distracted in the middle of a fight, he stood there with crossed arms. Izuku, understood and noted, he stood up. Ayato, I didn't expect you to have a quirk. Not many people with a quirk are seen here in Tokyo, he said casually. Izuku, well, let's continue with the training, he said happily. Ayato, humph, as you wish, he said casually. 3 hours later, the training ended, Ayato left the cafe, and Deku began working with the others. He was delivering coffee and dishes when he bumped into someone. Sorry, the girl said apologetically. Izuku, don't worry, it wasn't your fault, he said happily. I'm Himiko Toga, said a blonde-haired girl with yellow eyes, wearing a cream-colored sweater and a navy blue skirt. Izuku, I'm Izuku Midoriya, nice to meet you, he said happily. Himiko, Izuku Midoriya, she thought happily. Izuku, and what would you like to order? He said happily. Himiko, I'd like a coffee, please, she said happily. Deku went to Yomo to order the blonde girl's coffee. After a minute, Yomo finished making the coffee, handed it to the green-haired boy, who then went to Himiko. Izuku, here you go, he said casually, handing her the coffee. Himiko, thank you, she took the coffee happily. Hey, what time do you finish work? She asked happily, sipping her coffee. Izuku, why'd you ask? He said confused. Himiko, so we can hang out. I love making new friends, she smiled. Izuku, considering things, I'll tell you when I finish. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I finish at 8 p.m., and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I finish at 6 p.m., he said happily. Himiko, today you finish at 8 p.m., what great luck I have, she thought very excitedly. Thanks for telling me, she said happily. Izuku, you're welcome, he gave her a smile and walked away from the table. The day passed quickly, night fell, and we see Deku putting on his backpack, ready to leave work. Izuku, goodbye, he opened the cafe door. Tuka, goodbye, she said casually without looking at him. Deku walked toward his house, continuing until he passed through a completely dark alley. And then some whip-like objects emerged from the alley, grabbing the green-haired boy. The whips pulled him into the alley, where a hand with a syringe appeared, injecting a sleeping liquid into Deku's neck. 10 hours later, Deku woke up in an abandoned factory, chained from head to toe and blindfolded. Izuku, size, where am I? He said very scared and with rapid breathing. Finally awake, the voice of a cheerful girl was heard. The girl removed the blindfold from Deku's eyes, allowing him to see his kidnapper. Izuku, Himiko, he said in shock. Himiko, hello, she put on a demented smile. Izuku, why am I here? He said scared. Himiko, oh, nothing special, just brought you here to play with you, she said crazily, getting closer to his face. Would you like to play the knife game? She took out 2 knives from her pockets. UA Hero Academy. The students of Class A were arriving at UA. Uraka was entering when she looked back, remembering that she and Deku used to arrive together. All she could think was, why, Deku, why did you leave? Ida, Uraka, are you okay? He asked, concerned, snapping her out of her thoughts. Uraka, oh? Yeah, I'm fine, she said, lowering her head. Ida, you're still thinking about him, aren't you? He said casually. Uraka, yes, I don't understand why he left like that, she said sadly, still not looking at her companion. Ida, it's a mystery, but for now, we just have to wish him luck wherever he is, he said contentedly. Uraka, you're right. Wherever he is, I hope he's okay, she said normally, looking up at the sky. Tokyo. Izuku, ah. Himiko, hee, how fun. Your arm is bleeding a lot, she said happily, filling a bucket. Izuku, what the hell is wrong with you? He raised his head angrily, showing his ghoul eye. Himiko, how cute, you're a one-eye too. I thought I was the only one, she said happily, then showing her right eye. Deku began trembling in fear. Izuku, why are you doing this? I thought you wanted us to be friends? He asked, scared and angry. Himiko, I did say that, but it's always the same. I end up cutting them up or eating them, but when I saw you, I thought, I won't kill this one, I'll have fun with him, she said happily, holding his face. Izuku, hey, well, I don't think you'll have much fun. When my cafe friends find out I didn't go to work, they'll start looking for me, he said annoyed. Himiko, ha, you're funny, sweetheart. I sent them a message saying you were sick, and they said they'd come see you after work, she said happily. Izuku, you're crazy, he shouted furiously. Himiko, I love you too. Now let's play the finger-cutting game, she said happily, taking out some rusty pliers. Hours passed until nightfall. Himiko, your little friends must be heading to your house. I better hurry, she said happily, leaving the rusty pliers on the table. Izuku, and how do you plan to fool them? He said weakly. Himiko, like this, she filled a glass with blood. Toga drank the glass of blood completely and transformed into Deku. Izuku, a ghoul with a quirk, he said scared. Himiko, correct. If you try to escape, the chair will electrocute you. And if you manage to escape from the chair, there are guard gnomes all over the place, she said happily. Izuku, and gnomes, he shouted even more scared. Himiko, yes, gnomes. I thank my friend Tomura for that. Goodbye, handsome, she left the torture room, leaving the green-haired boy alone. 3 weeks later. Himiko was entering the torture room with a TV. Himiko, my love, I have an even more fun game, she said happily, holding his face. Deku, without thinking twice, headbutted her. Himiko, ouch, that wasn't fun, she said happily, rubbing her head. Now let's play. Permanent psychological traumas, she said happily. Izuku, you tortured me in many ways, what's so special about this? He said uninterestedly. Himiko, oh, you're going to love this, I promise. Because you'll get to see your mommy again, she said happily, turning on the TV. Izuku, what? He shouted alarmed at Toga's last words. Himiko, yes, look, she held his face, forcing him to watch. On the TV, Deku's old house was shown, completely destroyed. The camera began to rotate, showing Tomura holding Deku's mother by the neck. Tomura, hello, Midoriya, he said psychotically. Izuku, Mom. He screamed desperately, trying to free himself. Inko, Izuku, she said sadly, with tears in her eyes. The chair gave Deku an electric shock. Izuku, leave my mother alone. Leave her alone, and how did you find out where I live? He said annoyed and agitated. Tomura, humph, it was super simple. Toga had your phone and received a voicemail from your mother, and she let me know. We tracked the location. And the show begins, he said happily. Izuku, show? He said scared. Himiko, yes, darling. I played with you so much that I couldn't think of anything new, and when I heard your mom's worried message, I said, I know another way to play with him, she said happily, jumping with excitement. Izuku, what are you going to do to my mother? he said scared. Tomura, some last farewell words, he said normally, gaining the green-haired boy's attention. Deku, upon hearing that, began to move frantically. Izuku, no. Don't you dare, he yelled furiously, thrashing desperately, and the chair electrocuted him again. Himiko, here comes the final part, she took hold of Deku's face to force him to watch. Izuku, no, I don't want to see. He shook his head desperately. Inko, my son. She called out to the green-haired boy, gaining his attention. Thank you for coming into my life, thank you for the good moments you gave me. Never forget, I love you, Izuku. Fight to achieve your dreams because you can become a hero. I love you, Izuku. Take care of yourself, she said, tears of sadness streaming down her face. Deku's mother's skin began to decay until it finally turned to dust. Izuku, mommy no. He screamed desperately, tears of sadness streaming down his face. Then Toga hit Deku with a hammer. Himiko, ha ha ha, that was fun, she said happily, turning off the TV. Now that this game is over, on to the next one, skinning, she took a potato peeler and approached Deku's neck. 14 hours later. Himiko, the fun's over, she removed the bloodied potato peeler from Deku's neck. Now, I'll go deceive your friends into thinking you're sick, she said happily, then drank Deku's blood. See you later, darling, she left the room. Toga left the room, leaving Deku alone, his head bowed, bloodied. And with hair that used to be green, now turned white. 1 month later. In Deku's mind. Deku was in a completely white place, sitting on a chair with his head down, not handcuffed. HMPF, who would have thought, you went through torture just like me. A white-haired guy stood in front of Deku. Izuku, Kaneki. He looked up. You're a real idiot, you had a family, how could you risk being killed every day? He said angrily, standing up. Kaneki, to be honest, I knew the dangers involved, but I did it to keep my family safe, it's the same as what you decided when you became a ghoul. He said calmly. Izuku, HMPF, and for what? I lost my mother, what more can I lose? Right now, I'd prefer death. He said normally. Immediately after, he received a punch from Kaneki, falling to the ground. Kaneki, that's the stupidest thing you've said. He crossed his arms. I also thought about that, but I found a reason to stay alive, so don't give up either, you'll surely find another reason to keep living. He said calmly. Izuku, maybe, for now, I'm going to get out of here and fulfill my dream of becoming a hero, and I'll do it with my ghoul abilities. He stood up. Kaneki, you're going to accept your ghoul side, huh? He said contentedly. Izuku, I'll accept it only because I have no other choice, it's part of me now. He said normally. Kaneki, HMPF, now get out of here. He said contentedly before disappearing and leaving everything in total darkness. Himiko, well, sweetheart, we've played in different ways, rusty tweezers on the fingers, peeler on the neck, the centipede, the television, and I came up with a better one, organ removal. She said in a demented way approaching him. Izuku, he, it's the stupidest game you've come up with. He said normally without looking at her. Himiko, oh, but you're going to like this one, I promise you. Let's play, her Kagyun sprung towards Deku. Izuku, one for all, 50%, he whispered briefly. Deku was surrounded by green electric bolts, broke the chains, and punched Toga in the stomach before the chair electrocuted him and she attacked. Izuku, try to remove my organs if you can. He said normally, then sent Toga crashing into the wall with the force of his punch. Toga hit the wall hard, getting stuck. Himiko, spitting blood he, good hit. With your completely white hair, you look like a real lunatic, I love you so much, Midoriya, we have to play more often. She said happily. Izuku, HMPF, yeah, right, and by the way, he wiped the blood from his mouth. You taste like rotten meat, try to bathe more often. He said disgusted. Himiko, oh. She touched her head. Wow, what speed, I never noticed, you're amazing. She said happily. Izuku, I hope I don't have to see your insignificant face and presence again, goodbye trash. He smashed the door to pieces. As he left the room, the white-haired guy felt the ground start to shake. Turning to the right he saw a group of Nomas heading towards him. Izuku, hey, I've been chained to a chair for 1 month, they'll serve as stretching. Izuku, hey, I've been chained to a chair for 1 month, they'll serve as stretching. He said happily activating one for all at 50%. The winged Nomu attacked first, Deku stopped it with one hand and finished it with a kick, burying it into the other wall from its head. Another Nomu attacked, but Deku jumped over it, clasped his hands, and hit it in the head, slamming it on the ground. The third Nomu threw a punch, but Deku ducked and quickly elbowed it in the face, sending it crashing into the ceiling. The white-haired guy looked ahead and saw 3 more Nomus running towards him. All he did was crack his finger and smile. Another 2 Nomus attacked. Deku dodged them and finished with a punch, hitting both. He glanced at the other Nomu approaching. Quickly he kicked it in the neck. While others Nomus were coming towards the white-haired guy, they each punched, but then Deku spun, breaking his knee, and finished with a kick, hitting both Nomus, sending them crashing into the wall, while he kicked the other one in the head, slamming it on the ground, freeing himself from it. Izuku, HMPF, at this point, I don't feel pain anymore. He thought, normally looking at his broken knee. The white-haired guy's knee started to spin rapidly and it adjusted as if nothing had happened to him. He turned back, seeing the Nomus getting up, then turned back to the front, seeing the other 3 Nomus. Once again he cracked his finger and smiled psychopathically. Izuku, let's play. He got into a fighting stance. The Nomus attacked at the same time. Deku did a somersault, avoiding them. A Nomu from behind kicked, but Deku stopped it and slammed it into the wall. Another Nomu attacked with a punch, but the white-haired guy stopped the punch, broke its bones, and tore off its arm. Deku kneed the Nomu, leaving it unconscious. Then the other Nomu generated a giant sharpened blade and pierced Deku, brought him close and punched him in the face, sending him crashing into the wall, raising a lot of dust. 1 month later. Inside Deku's mind. Deku found himself in a completely white space, seated in a chair with his head bowed, but not restrained. HMPF, who would have thought you'd endure torture like me? A white-haired guy appeared in front of Deku. Izuku, Kaneki. He looked up. You're a real idiot. You had a family. How could you risk being killed every day? He said angrily, rising to his feet. Kaneki, honestly, I knew the risks, but I did it to keep my family safe. It's similar to what you decided when you became a ghoul. He said calmly. Izuku, HMPF, and for what? I lost my mother. What more can I lose? Right now, I'd prefer death. He said normally. Immediately after, Kaneki punched him, and Deku fell to the ground. Kaneki, that's the dumbest thing you've said. He crossed his arms. I thought the same, but I found a reason to stay alive. So, don't give up either. You'll surely find another reason to keep living. He said calmly. Izuku, maybe, for now, I'm going to get out of here and fulfill my dream of becoming a hero, even with my ghoul abilities. He stood up. Kaneki, you're going to accept your ghoul side, huh? He said contentedly. Izuku, I'll accept it only because I have no other choice. It's part of me now. He said normally. Kaneki, HMPF, now get out of here. He said contentedly before disappearing, leaving everything in total darkness. Himiko, well, sweetheart, we've played in different ways. Rusty tweezers on the fingers, a peeler on the neck, the centipede, the television, and I've come up with a better one, organ removal. She said in a demented way, approaching him. Izuku, he, it's the stupidest game you've come up with. He said normally without looking at her. Himiko, oh, but you're going to like this one, I promise you. Let's play. Her Kagyun sprang towards Deku. Izuku, one for all, 50%, he whispered briefly. Deku was surrounded by green electric bolts, broke the chains, and punched Toga in the stomach before the chair electrocuted him and she attacked. Izuku, try to remove my organs if you can. He said normally, then sent Toga crashing into the wall with the force of his punch. Toga hit the wall hard, getting stuck. Himiko, spitting blood, he, good hit. With your completely white hair, you look like a real lunatic. I love you so much, Midoriya, we have to play more often. She said happily. Izuku, HMPF, yeah, right, and by the way, he wiped the blood from his mouth. You taste like rotten meat. Try to bathe more often. He said disgusted. Himiko, oh. She touched her head. Wow, what speed. I never noticed. You're amazing. She said happily. Izuku, I hope I don't have to see your insignificant face and presence again. Goodbye, trash. He smashed the door to pieces. As he left the room, the white-haired guy felt the ground start to shake. Turning to the right, he saw a group of Nomas heading towards him. Izuku, hey, I've been chained to a chair for 1 month. They'll serve as stretching. Izuku, hey, I've been chained to a chair for 1 month. They'll serve as stretching. He said happily, activating one for all at 50%. The winged Nomu attacked first. Deku stopped it with one hand and finished it with a kick, burying it into the opposite wall from its head. Another Nomu attacked, but Deku jumped over it, clasped his hands, and hit it in the head, slamming it on the ground. The third Nomu threw a punch, but Deku ducked and quickly elbowed it in the face, sending it crashing into the ceiling. The white-haired guy looked ahead and saw 3 more Nomus running towards him. All he did was crack his finger and smile. Another 2 Nomus attacked. Deku dodged them and finished with a punch, hitting both. He glanced at the other Nomu approaching. Quickly, he kicked it in the neck, while other Nomus were coming towards him. They each punched, but then Deku spun, breaking his knee and finishing with a kick, hitting both Nomus, sending them crashing into the wall, while he kicked the other one in the head, slamming it on the ground, freeing himself from it. Izuku, HMPF, at this point, I don't feel pain anymore. He thought normally, looking at his broken knee. The white-haired guy's knee started to spin rapidly and adjusted as if nothing had happened to him. He turned back, seeing the Nomus getting up. Then, he turned back to the front, seeing the other 3 Nomus. Once again, he cracked his finger and smiled psychopathically. Izuku, let's play. He got into a fighting stance. The Nomus attacked at the same time. Deku did a somersault, avoiding them. A Nomu from behind kicked, but Deku stopped it and slammed it into the wall. Another Nomu attacked with a punch, but the white-haired guy stopped it, broke its bones, and tore off its arm. Deku kneed the Nomu, leaving it unconscious. Then, the other Nomu generated a giant sharpened blade and pierced Deku, bringing him close and punched him in the face, sending him crashing into the wall, raising a lot of dust. Deku, HMPF, thanks for warming me up. He emerged from the smoke. One for all 100%, now I'm serious. He put on a demented smile as more green lightning bolts emanated from him. Suddenly, 4 tentacles emerged from Deku's back, indicating that the white-haired guy had accepted his Kagyun. 4 Nomus ran towards the half-ghoul. He quickly ascended into the air using 2 of his Kagyun while attacking with the others. He pierced 2 Nomus with his Kagyun, then descended at great speed and kicked both Nomus. The third Nomu attacked from behind. Deku quickly pierced it with another Kagyun, then propelled himself, landing a punch, smashing the Nomu's head. Izuku, 1 down, 3 to go. He said excitedly, turning to face the remaining Nomus. The Nomus ran towards the white-haired guy, who ran towards them. He propelled himself with his Kagyun and struck the Nomus with the unused Kagyun, piercing them, and finally finished with 2 punches, destroying their heads, leaving. Minutes before the presentation of the new ghoul investigator. Deku leaned against a building wall while across from him stood the leader of the pigeon squad. Arima, what happened to you, kid? Last time I saw you, your hair was green and you didn't have those scars on your neck. He said calmly. Izuku, it's a long story, but I ended up becoming one of them. But I just want to protect people, so they don't suffer from ghouls like I did. Please let me work with you and defend people. He said calmly, head bowed. Arima looked at the boy for a moment, then finally made his decision. Arima, welcome, Investigator Midoriya. He said calmly with a smile, making the boy look up. Izuku, thank you so much. He said, a few tears of joy in his eyes. Arima, but we have rules. You can't wear that outfit. He said calmly. Izuku, I can't take off this suit. It's all I have left of my mother. He said calmly. Arima, I understand. I won't force you to take off that suit. Just wear a white jacket like everyone else. He said calmly. Izuku, sigh well, as long as I can keep wearing this suit, it's fine. He said calmly. Arima, all right, let's go back to the squad. He said calmly. Now. Akira, he just said. New investigator. She was still shocked by what she heard. Arima, that's correct. He said calmly. Juuzu, with all due respect, sir, is it okay for a ghoul to work with us? He said calmly. Izuku, with all due respect. He revealed his ghoul side. I'm half ghoul. An accident turned me into this. He said calmly. Juuzu, oh, well. I'm sorry to hear that. He said calmly. Izuku, and I asked Mr. Arima to let me work here. I was tortured by a ghoul, they killed my mother, and the same ghoul who tortured me caused her death. That's why I asked Mr. Arima to let me work here, so that no one suffers the same way or worse. He clenched his fists so tightly that they started bleeding. Akira, you seem to have a lot of potential, kid, and about your mother, we're very sorry. She said calmly. Arima, well, enough talk. Let's go back to District 20. Investigator Midoriya, see you there tomorrow at 6 a.m., he said calmly. Izuku, understood, thank you Mr. Arima. He said happily, leaving the place. The white-haired one activated his uniqueness, surrounded by green rays, and jumped, leaping over the walls of the buildings. Juuzu, does that kid have a uniqueness? He said amazed. Arima, HMPF, you're full of surprises, Midoriya. He smiled. Next morning, 6 a.m. We see the white-haired one heading to District 20 with a thermos in his hand containing coffee. 20 minutes later, Deku arrives at District 20. At that precise moment he was hit with memories, as the first time he came here was the last time he was with all his friends from UA. Izuku, I wonder how Uraka and the others are doing? Don't think about them, focus on your new life now. He thought calmly before entering District 20. UA Academy. We can see all the students entering the classroom, but in the classroom we can see the brown-haired one chatting with one of her friends about what they were going to do after classes, but then the pink-haired one brought up a topic the brown-haired one wasn't expecting. Mina, Uraka, can I ask you something special? She said calmly. Uraka, sure, what do you want to ask me? She asked happily. Mina, since when have you loved Midoriya? She asked with great interest. Uraka, well. She blushed deeply at what she just heard. Mina, oh come on, I want to know. She said happily. Uraka. When the UA entrance exam started, I saw him. He was lost in his thoughts and almost fell on his face. I used my quirk to prevent him from falling. I told him we could meet up after the exam. But during the exam, I hurt my knee, a practice robot was advancing, I closed my eyes so as not to see anything and then I heard a loud thud. When I looked, I saw him. He had pushed the robot aside, probably since then I started feeling something for him, and then in All Might's class, when he saved me again, that's when I realized. I love him a lot. She said happily with nostalgia, putting a smile on her face with a slight blush. Mina, oh, how sweet, although it's still a mystery where he went, and it all started after the accident he had. She said calmly. Uraka, I know, I just hope he's okay and hopefully I can see him again in the future. She said calmly, lowering her gaze. Tokyo, District 20. Arima, this is your office. If you need anything, you know where to find me. He said calmly. Izuku, okay, thank you, Mr. Arima. He said happily. Arima left the office, leaving Deku alone. The white-haired one sat in the desk chair to start investigating the ghoul organization known as the Clowns, but not only them, he also started working on the investigation of another ghoul who could change appearance by licking the blood of its victims. Izuku, HMPF, so you're still causing trouble, huh? He said calmly, knowing perfectly well who the ghoul, or rather the ghoul who changes appearance, was. Juuzu, hey, Midoriya. He said happily entering the office. Izuku, oh, it's just you, Juuzu, right? He said calmly. Juuzu, yeah, that's my name. He said happily. Izuku, well, Juuzu, let's skip the formalities. You can call me Deku. He said happily. Juuzu, okay, Deku. By the way, what kind of quirk do you have? It's the first time we've had an investigator with a quirk. He said happily, very curious. Izuku, super strength, that's my quirk. He said calmly. Juuzu, do you think you could show me a bit of your strength? I mean, it's the first time we've had an investigator with a quirk. He said excitedly. Izuku, I'm not sure, it would be very risky. I would end up drawing attention from ghouls and other things I don't want to think about. He said calmly, remembering what happened at UA. Juuzu, okay, as you say. He said calmly, approaching the white-haired one's monitor. I see you're checking the accidents caused by the shape-changing ghoul. He said calmly. Izuku, it's she. He said calmly. Juuzu, she? He was confused by the white-haired one's response. Izuku, the shape-changing ghoul was the one who tortured me. He said calmly, still looking at the computer monitor. Juuzu, that sucks. He said calmly. Izuku, Mr. Arima told me to finish off the ghouls, but even so, they're living beings. No matter how cruel people or ghouls are, I can't kill them. He said calmly, still checking the monitor on his computer. Juuzu, you're a bit weird, but I still like you. He said happily, patting him on the back. Izuku, HMPF, thanks, Juuzu, I like you too. He said happily, fist bumping him. The black-haired one fist bumped the white-haired one before they continued working. 5 months later. Deku reached the highest rank of all ghoul investigators in 1 week. His white hair gradually returned to its natural green color. With what he had earned, he managed to buy a house with 5 rooms. At the moment, we can see the green white-haired one sitting on top of a building, accompanied by 4 people, whom he remembered recruiting. Flashback. It was a rainy night. Izuku, still with completely white hair, was leaving District 20 as his shift had ended. He was heading home when he heard a loud crash. He stood still to better hear the noise when suddenly from an alley, a light blue-haired girl came flying out, hitting the wall of a building. Izuku, what the, he said calmly. Immediately after, a ghoul came out of the alley, looking at the girl with a murderous look. You're too weak, girl. Die now. He extended his Kagyan towards the light blue-haired one. The rival ghoul's Kagyan hit, raising a lot of dust. The dust slowly cleared until it revealed the white-haired one with the light blue-haired girl in his arms. Izuku, you just earned yourself a date with the devil. He left the girl on the ground and then clenched his fists. He, don't make me laugh, kid. Now let me. Izuku, smash, he punched at 10% of one for all. At great speed, he received a punch from the white-haired one, falling to his knees. Grrrrrrr, but. When did, he turned to look at the white-haired one. Who the hell are you? He said in pain. Izuku, HMPF. I'm Green Ripper. He said calmly and then took out his phone. Juuzu. He said calmly. Juuzu, oh, hey Deku, what's up? He said calmly. Izuku, oh, nothing, I just need you to come to the place where I'll send you these coordinates. I found an Aogiri ghoul, I just left him unconscious. He said calmly, hitting the ghoul on the neck, rendering him unconscious. Juuzu, understood, let me inform Investigator Arima. He said calmly. Izuku, well, I'll be waiting here. He said calmly, ending the call. After hanging up, he approached the girl to see if she was okay, if her injuries weren't too severe. The girl started to open her eyes, revealing that one of them was ghoul. Izuku, another one. He thought amazed, as he didn't expect to see another half ghoul. Where am I? She said confused, looking around. Izuku, don't worry, you're safe. You were attacked by a ghoul, I just left him unconscious. He pointed to the ghoul lying on the ground. Well, thank you very much. She said happily. Izuku, you're welcome. What's your name? He asked happily. My name is Psycho Yonabayashi. She said happily, extending her right arm. Izuku, nice to meet you, Psycho. I'm Izuku Midoriya, but you can call me Deku. He said happily, shaking the light blue-haired one's hand. End of flashback. Just then, he remembered how he recruited the others. Jinshi Shirazu, he found him looting a bank because he has a sick sister. Deku talked some sense into him and helped him. Yuri Kuki, he appeared on a mission against Aogiri. The investigators tried to kill him, but Deku stopped them. After a brief, Deku and his students left the building, and 5 minutes later ghoul investigators arrived. Arima stood in front of Deku. Arima, Deku. He said calmly. Deku, Arima. What's going on? He asked normally. Arima, the organization known as the Clowns has been located. He said normally. Yuri, where are they? He asked curiously. Arima, they're 2 blocks from here, in an abandoned circus. He said normally. Izuku, typical. He crossed his arms. Arima, let's go now. He said normally. Deku and his students nodded, heading to the abandoned circus. But when they reached the entrance, the leaders stopped them. Jinshi, why do we? Izuku, shh. He put his finger on his lips to silence him. Toru, don't make noise or they'll hear us. She whispered seriously. Juuzu, alright, what do we do? He asked normally. Izuku, I got it. Jinshi, get to that high spot to cover the aerial ground. He said normally. Jinshi, understood. He said normally. Izuku, Mr. Arima, divide the squad and go to the back of the tent. He said normally. Arima, HMPF, I understand. Squad, follow me. He said normally. Akira, understood. She said normally. Izuku, Toru and Psycho, you go to the sides with a group of the squad and wait for the signal. He whispered normally. Toru, understood, sensei. She whispered normally. Izuku, I've told you before, you can call me Deku. He whispered normally. Toru, sorry, it's a habit. She said normally with a smile. Izuku, alright, Juuzu, get ready. He said excitedly. Juuzu, really, are we going for the dramatic entrance? He got excited. Izuku, oh, absolutely. He extended his arm, activating the one for all in his fingers at 10%, in 3, 2, 1. He launched the attack. The air pressure entered the tent, opening the fabric and catching the clown's attention. Quickly, Juuzu activated his Quinque and entered with the green-haired boy. Juuzu, nice gathering. He said happily. Izuku, we can join in. He snapped his fingers, giving the signal. Arima, now, he said normally. The investigators began to enter from all sides, starting to attack the clowns. The doves are here, counterattack quickly, the clown leader said alarmed. The ghouls began to attack, clowns jumped trying to attack, but crystalline projectiles hit them, causing them to fall to the ground. Izuku, good job, Jinshi. He thought happily while breaking a clown's arm. Blow after blow, clash after clash between Kagunesh, the green-haired boy saw a clown trying to escape. So Deku activated the one for all at 10% and tackled the ghoul, slamming them into the wall. Ouch. She rubbed her head, feeling a bit sore. Izuku, HMPF, did you really think you could escape? Well, I'm afraid not. He said normally. Seriously kid, you shouldn't have gotten involved in this. I hope you don't mind if we use you as a spectacle in our next show. She said mockingly. Izuku, hey, I'd like to see you try. His eye and pupil changed to black and red, showing his Kagyun. That Kagyun and presence, you remind me of the recently deceased Kenkaneki. She ran towards the green-haired boy. Meanwhile, in the other fight. Yuri, where's Deku? He said normally. Toru, he went after a clown who tried to escape. She said normally. Juuzu, and besides, speaking of Deku, he's Green Repper, he'll catch the ghoul. He said calmly, throwing a knife backward, which hit a clown in the head. A clown attacked Psycho, but she quickly turned her Kagyun into a giant fist and struck, slamming the clown. Psycho, phew, that was close. She said normally. Suddenly, two Kagunesh emerged from the darkness, piercing Psycho's arms and dragging her into the shadows without anyone noticing. Meanwhile, with Deku, the clown slammed into the wall, very sore. Izuku, I'll say one thing, Roma, is that all you've got? He crossed his arms. The clown leader, Roma, hearing this, exploded with rage. Roma, grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr change shape until it turned into a huge and terrifying creature. Izuku, HMPF, 1 for all, 25%, he said normally. In the blink of an eye, Deku punched Roma in the face, ripping her from her kakuja and slamming her face first into the ground. Izuku, that was a boring fight. He said normally, grabbing her by the head and heading towards the others. Upon arrival, most of the clowns were defeated, others were captured. Deku threw the leader onto the center stage, then looked at his students, noticing someone was missing. Izuku, where's Psycho? He asked normally. Just then, 2 more clowns were sent flying, falling unconscious to the ground, and Psycho entered, adjusting her coat. Izuku, there you are. He said normally. And your quinque? He asked somewhat doubtful. Psycho, they destroyed it. She said nervously, forcing a smile. Izuku, all right. He said normally. Arima, all right, let's take the captured ghouls to District 20. He said normally. Everyone nodded, and an hour later, we see Deku along with his students heading home. Psycho, well, I'm glad everything's over. She stretched her arms happily. Toru, another day keeping people safe. She said happily. They continued walking until the green-haired boy stopped. Yuri, what's wrong? He said somewhat confused. Izuku, first, I want to congratulate you all on your work today. You did excellent. He said happily. Jinshi, thank you. He said happily. Izuku, and there's something I need to address. He said normally, approaching Psycho. Psycho is strong, but She's not weak either. He said normally, activating one for all at 100%. Psycho, what are you doing, Midoriya? She said somewhat scared. Then, Deku punched Psycho in the face, slamming her against the wall of a building. Toru, sensei, what are you doing? She said alarmed by what happened. Izuku, the real Psycho can withstand one of my punches at 100%, just like you all, and besides. Psycho has never called me Midoriya, he said normally, grabbing Psycho by the collar. You're not Psycho. Who are you, and where's the real Psycho? He said somewhat annoyed. Question mark, hee, you caught me. She said happily, revealing her true identity. Hi sweetheart. She said happily. Izuku, Toga. He clenched his fist and raised it, furious to see the ghoul who tortured him. Yuri, Deku, don't do it. He said somewhat worried. Himiko, come on, Midoriya, become the ruthless ghoul you're supposed to be. She said happily. Deku was about to attack, but then he remembered that if his mother were alive, she wouldn't want to see this. Izuku, justice, not vengeance. He thought normally, then stopped one for all. Himiko, how boring. She said somewhat annoyed. Izuku, I told you I didn't want to see you again. He said normally. But more importantly, what did you do with Psycho? He said extremely angry. Himiko, hee, she's at the circus. She said happily. Izuku, Yuri, Toru, go get her. He said angrily, still looking at Toga. Toru, understood, sensei. She said normally before running off to the circus with Yuri. Himiko, giggles. Izuku, what are you laughing about? He said annoyed. Toga, oh, nothing, just that instead of glaring at me with hatred, the ghouls with the best quirks are being transported to the League of Villains to attack UA, she said happily. Izuku, what? He was in shock. Himiko, yes, All for One sent me to recruit them. Oops, spoiler. She said mockingly. Izuku, All for One? He thought confused. Himiko, I'd love to stay and chat, but I have to go now, bye my little crazy. She said happily. A portal opened behind Toga. Deku looked at the portal, then Toga pulled out a knife and scratched the green-haired boy's hand, causing him to let her go. Toga entered the portal with a smile, and finally, the portal closed. Izuku, UA is in danger, All Might, my friends. Uraka, I have to go back. He thought alarmed and scared. Toru, sensei, she shouted from afar, pulling the green-haired boy out of his thoughts. Izuku, oh, Toru, Yuri. He said normally. Yuri, we found Psycho, she was chained up and in her underwear when we found her. He said normally, pointing to the girl wearing a white coat. Izuku, sigh, thank goodness nothing serious happened to you, Psycho. Now let's go home. He said normally. Psycho, of course, Deku. She said normally. Weeks later. We see Deku inside a plane taking off. He was looking at Tokyo as he was going back to his hometown once again, but he remembered the goodbyes he made, first with Juuzu. Juuzu, you're leaving? He said alarmed. Izuku, yeah, I'm sorry, but my friends and people I care about are in danger, I have to go back. He said normally. Juuzu, I understand perfectly. I wish you good luck, my friend. He said sadly, giving him a hug. Izuku, goodbye, Juuzu, I hope to see you soon. He said somewhat sad, returning the hug. Then with his friends from Re-Cafe. Tuka, so you're leaving? She said normally. Izuku, yeah, I know Kaneki told me to stay here, but my friends are in danger, I can't just stay here like nothing happened. He clenched his fists in anger. Yomo, don't worry kid, we understand. He put his hand on Deku's shoulder. Hinami, thank you for the company you gave us, even though it was for a short time. She said happily. Izuku, hey, yeah, but I had a lot of fun. Goodbye. He said normally, heading to the entrance door. Tuka/Hinami/Yomo, goodbye. They bid farewell with a smile. And finally with his students. Jinchi, are you really leaving? This group won't be the same without you. He said normally. Toru, plus, we don't know if we're ready to move forward without you, sensei. She said normally. Izuku, HMPF, don't say that, Toru. I've taught you a lot, enough for you to continue defending people here, and they need you. He said happily, looking at them all. Besides, we'll still keep in touch, once I get a house, I'll make it so we can stay in touch. He said happily. Psycho, even so, missions won't be the same. She said normally. Izuku, Sai, what am I going to do with you, Jinchi? Now you're in charge of the group, do your best. He said happily. Jinchi, we will. He said happily. Yuri, good luck, Deku. He said normally with a smile. Izuku, I wish the same to all of you. Goodbye. He said happily before leaving for the airport. Izuku, do your best, was all he thought as he began to drift away from Tokyo. The next day we can see the plane landing. 10 minutes later people started to leave the plane, among them Deku was coming out. Once Deku left the airport, upon seeing his hometown he let out a deep sigh. Izuku, it feels good to be home again. He said happily. Weeks later. It was a normal weekend, and we can see a group of girls walking through the mall. Momo, which store should we visit now? She said happily. Toru, I don't know, we've seen almost all of them. She said normally. Mina, hey, there's a store we haven't seen yet, it's over there. She said happily, pointing to the store. Uraka, well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. She said happily. As they took the first step, an explosion sounded, generating a lot of smoke. Momo, what just happened? She said normally without opening her eyes due to the smoke. Uraka, I have no idea. She said alarmed, covering her eyes. The smoke began to clear, allowing the girls to see again, and they saw a person waving their arms. Suddenly, the shops and places in the center began to collapse, causing people to start running in fear. Villain, yes, let everything collapse, he said crazily, still destroying things. Uraka, stop, she shouted angrily, catching the attention of the villain. Villain, shut your mouth, girl, he sent a couple of electrified cables towards her. Her companion next to her generated an electricity-proof fabric, but before using it as a shield, a green object landed and grabbed the cables in time. Are you okay? He said normally, revealing his identity. He was a guy with green and white hair, wearing a dark green suit, red sneakers, white gloves, and a black mask covering one eye. Mina, yes, we're fine. She said normally. Izuku, good to hear that. Now go, I'll take care of this clown. He said normally, cracking his finger. Villain, ha 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 ha, good one. He laughed at the boy's comment. Izuku, you have no idea what you're up against. He said normally as he surrounded himself with green lightning. Meanwhile, the brunette girl stayed looking at the boy with doubt, as his hair, suit, and voice seemed very familiar. Uraka, his outfit, his hair, his voice, why do they seem familiar? She thought confusedly, not taking her eyes off the boy. Mina, Uraka, snap out of it, she said desperately, shaking her shoulders. Uraka, huh? She said somewhat confused, snapping out of her thoughts. Momo, we need to go. She said alarmed. The brunette quickly came to her senses and ran off with her friends, but she glanced back at the boy, noticing something red coming out of his back.